Coming up, Framber Valdez no-hits the Guardians. This is Locked On Game to Game, MLB.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. Local experts join us, and then we recap all of the action for you from yesterday across Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. We thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Was a big day yesterday with trade deadline day, but it was also a big day for Framber Valdez. He threw the third no-hitter of the MLB season against the Guardians last night. Our Locked On Astros host goes over the historic night in Houston.
All right.
Good start going to that breaking ball down.
We've got one strike, no balls, 93 pitches, and something special is about to happen. We got two strikes, 0-2. Let's go. Let's go. Let's see what we can do here. Everybody's on their feet. Yes! No-hitter. No-hitter. Framber Valdez, first career no-hitter. Check us out on Locked On Astros. Let's go.
It has been an eventful 48 hours for the Cleveland Guardians. They traded away Aaron Savali on Monday. They traded away Josh Bell Tuesday. Got back prospect Khalil Watson and cleared some of Bell's money off the books and also got out from under his player option for next year. On the other side of things, the Guardians were no-hit by the Houston Astros on Tuesday night, losing 2-0 to Framber Valdez. Guardians offense just didn't look good. Framber Valdez dominated them. Clubhouse has taken the trades the last 2 days pretty hard, and overall it hasn't been a good season, and this just really has punctuated where things have gone so far this season. A team that just never really got off the ground, could not match last year's energy and just overall ability to frustrate the other team. Instead, they are the ones frustrating. They are 2 games out of the AL Central, and they are still looking to build the rotation for the next roster. And they have one more game against Houston, so stay tuned to Locked On Guardians for.
After getting shut out through the first 8 innings in Miami, Nick Castellanos hit a go-ahead home run in the top of the 9th to give the Phillies the win over their division rival, the Marlins. Locked On Phillies recaps that last-second turnaround.
My goodness, what a comeback win for the Philadelphia Phillies. Connor Thomas, your host of Locked On Phillies. I mean, the Phils looked dead in this one. They didn't score until the 9th inning. They were down 1-0. I mean, Ranger Suarez got hit around, but he battled, and the Phillies defense just kept them in this game to the point where they could make a run at it in the 9th inning, and make a run at it they did. Kyle Schwarber, a leadoff walk. Rob Thompson, great decision to let Jake Cave run for him. Bryce Harper, an RBI double to score Jake Cave. And then Nick Castellanos with an absolute bomb. And the Harper double and the Castellanos homer came off David Robertson, the guy the Phillies acquired at the trade deadline last year. Listen, it wasn't the most exciting trade deadline, but that was a darn good comeback for the Philadelphia Phillies. And they've won the first 2 in Miami. Man, get excited about your Philadelphia Phillies. We'll talk more on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.
Coming up, some new faces playing their first games for their new teams. This is Locked On Game to Game, MLB. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by Gametime. If you're like me, you decide last minute you want to go to a concert or a game or a show, it shouldn't really be that expensive and it shouldn't be so difficult to do. Gametime Guarantee is where they have you covered, because if you find tickets in the same section and the same row for less somewhere else, Gametime will credit you 110% of that difference. So what you need to do is download the Gametime app, create an account, and you can use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first order. Terms apply. Again, you just create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. I'm Kainani Stevens. The Brewers picked up a game on the Reds in the NL Central by beating the Nationals in D.C. Locked On Nationals has more on how Milwaukee was able to take down Washington.
The Nationals lose 6-4 against the Milwaukee Brewers tonight. Ryan Clary from Locked On Nationals here. The story of today's game was that Josiah Gray really didn't get the job done, going 3 2/3 innings today, giving up 5 earned runs, 3 walks, only 3 strikeouts. He just didn't have his best stuff, It's going to happen every now and then. It's a long season, but the goal for him, stay healthy this rest of the 2023, and that's really it. But when looking deeper at this game, C.J. Abrams providing 2 hits, that double as well, 2 RBIs in tonight's contest. Again, when you're talking about the 2023 Nationals, especially post Jeimer Candelario, you're going to need offensive production. And when you're talking about guys that you want to see it from, C.J. Abrams is at the top of that list. You also got some nice offensive production from Dominic Smith, Joey Meneses. Please, sir, it's time to not go 0 for 4. I'll catch you guys on tomorrow's Locked On Nats.
The Cubs scored an insane 20 runs against the Reds, and needless to say, they beat Cincinnati pretty handily. Our Locked On hosts go over the one-sided showing.
As a wise man once said, you win 50 games, you lose 50 games. It's the other 62 that you can get creative with. That just happened to be one of those 50 losses for the Reds. What's up? This is Jeff Carr from the Locked On Reds podcast. And the Cincinnati Reds allowed 20 runs in one game. Not a whole series, one game to the Chicago Cubs. That was really rough to watch. They managed to score 9 and at least make it look interesting, I think is the word. Ben Lively setting some records, 13 earned runs by one pitcher, 4 homers. Okay. Tough day. I think that's really where we're getting with this. Is tough day at the ballpark for the Cincinnati Reds.
In the National League, the Diamondbacks and Giants are right next to each other in the standings for the West and the wild card, meaning our Locked On local experts with those teams have plenty to go over postgame.
On a day that was largely defined by disappointment for Giants fans due to the team's inactivity at the trading deadline, the game itself was a game that invigorated the fan base. Patrick Bailey just continuing to establish himself as a star in this game. This is Ben Kaspeck with the Locked On Giants podcast. This was looking like another tough loss in the making with a 3-0 deficit against Zach Gallen, who's really good. But the Giants came storming back. Luis Matos had a huge hit that drove in a run, and then Brandon Crawford was just a no-doubt home run to center, and then Lamont Wade Jr. with a home run. And then defensively, Patrick Bailey just continued to be unbelievable defensively. He threw out from his knees a runner at second base, and then to end the game with the tying run on first and the winning or go-ahead run at the plate in Christian Walker, who's super dangerous. Bailey backpicks Geraldo Perdomo at first to end the game. So Bailey, man, unbelievable, and a nice win to kind of help people forget about the disappointment of the trade deadline. But we broke down the deadline, and we'll break down tomorrow's game on yesterday's podcast and then on tomorrow's podcast, where it's your team every day.
Coming up, Spencer Strider breaks his own MLB record. This is Locked On Game to Game MLB. Welcome back. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Both the Pirates and the Tigers sold at the deadline. Pittsburgh came out on top when the two teams played yesterday. Locked On Pirates host recaps the win.
After a very long trade deadline day that saw the Pittsburgh Pirates make 3 additional trades from the Carlos Santana move, they win 4-1 over the Detroit Tigers on Tuesday night in their first game of August and in their first game post-2023 trade deadline. And don't look now, but this young Pirates team has won 7 of their last 10 games, and they will look to beat the Detroit Tigers tomorrow against Eduardo Rodriguez, who, of course, opted to use his no-trade clause to not get traded to the LA Dodgers. He will face off with Osvaldo Bido to finish up the 2-game set in the Jim Leland Cup as the Pittsburgh Pirates win 4-1 over the Detroit Tigers on Tuesday night. My name is Ethan Smith, and I'll see you on the flip side.
The Yankees at the deadline in an unfamiliar spot. They are last place in the AL East. After another loss on Tuesday to the Rays, our Locked On expert goes over what happened.
It was a strange trade deadline for the Yankees. They made 2 questionable, confusing moves, and then the team comes out and plays a turd. I can't think of a better word. It was a turd. I'm Stacey Gotsoulias of Locked On Yankees. Carlos Rodon pitches 4 innings, gives up 4 runs on 4 hits with 4 walks and 5 strikeouts. It's the last thing you needed. And the offense decided to sleep until the 9th inning. They were down 5-0 going into the bottom of the 9th, and then they scored 2. Because that's what the Yankees offense does. They can't do anything against a team's starter, and then they'll suddenly get to the bullpen and make it so Yankee fans can say, oh, well, at least they weren't shut out. That's where we're at, people. That's where we're at. So we talk about this game. We talk about the 2 moves that the Yankees made, and we wonder why they made them on the next Locked On Yankees. So please tune in.
The Red Sox and Mariners are right next to each other in the AL wildcard race, and Locked On Red Sox tells us how their matchup played out in Seattle.
Hi, Gabby here from Locked On Red Sox. What a big win for Boston tonight, coming out on top 6-4 against the Mariners in Game 2 of the 3-game series with the rubber match tomorrow. Also, the Blue Jays took a loss to the Orioles tonight to pull the Red Sox back within 1.5 games of that 3rd wild card spot. Bayo didn't have his best start of the season by any means, didn't really look too sharp, but his offense had him covered. Welcomed Reese McGuire back into the lineup, and he smashed a home run. Verdugo smashed his first home run in a while, which was huge and much needed for him. So I'm hoping this gets him going again. Yoshida with a couple hits. Hopefully he's back. So the offense definitely showed a lot of promise tonight because this entire West Coast trip so far, the offense has been struggling. So it was a good win overall, and let's keep the momentum going.
Andrew Heaney struck out 11 White Sox in just 6 innings, and the Rangers shut out Chicago last night. Our Locked On local experts go into the details.
After trading for 2 starting pitchers, there's some thought that Andrew Heaney might not stay in this rotation, but after this dominant start against the White Sox, he said, not so fast. 6 shutout innings, 11 strikeouts, 2 hits, and a 2-0 win for the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Paddock, host of the Locked On Rangers podcast. This was a massive outing for Andrew Heaney. The Rangers bolstered their rotation with Max Scherzer, with Montgomery added to this rotation, but still, Andrew Heaney said, no, I am still worthy of a spot in this starting rotation. A dominant outing, and then the bullpen came in, was absolutely lights out, exactly what you'd expect. Josh Sborz, Aroldis Chapman, and Will Smith each with a scoreless inning of work. The Rangers got their 2 runs on 2 solo shots, one by Mitch Garver, one by Adolis Garcia. A big win for the Rangers to keep those Astros at bay in the AL West race.
Spencer Strider struck out Shohei Ohtani for Strider's 200th strikeout of the season, the fastest anyone has gotten to that mark in a season. The Braves picked up the win as well, and our Locked On hosts have more postgame.
If you're going to beat a good team, you got to take advantage of every opportunity, and the Angels didn't do that on Tuesday night. Hey, everybody, it's Mike Frisch, one half of Locked On Angels. Angels dropped the second game of a 3-game set to the Braves 5-1 on Tuesday night, and it was a game that we knew would be tough because Spencer Strider was on the mound for the Braves, Patrick Sandoval was on the mound for the Angels, and the game was 2-1 and close for a long time, but then the Braves busted it wide open when Jacob Webb came in, and he gave up back-to-back home runs, and the lead grew to 4 runs, and eventually the Braves did win 5-1. But the Angels are going to come back. We got a game on Wednesday, early game, and we've got Lucas Giolito on the mound, and we're going to tell you how they can win on Locked On Angels. Come and join us.
That's a wrap for this edition of Locked On Game to Game MLB. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Deadline day was explosive. If you want to keep up on all of the trades that went down, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On MLB and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.